Hello, I'm Cortne Lee Smith, your host and producer of the Midnight Hour. I serve as a grief and loss coach to support people to thrive through loss. And this episode right here, as a part of our relationship service station media ministry, it is to help you and minister you to a place where that in your midnight hour, you don't miss the turnaround. You don't miss the turnaround, because when you miss the turnaround, you get stuck in a dark place. So these series will help you to see the turnaround so you can reach joy in the morning. So thank you for joining us, and stay tuned to see this episode. Hello. Welcome back to another Midnight Hour where we're talking about the turnaround. You know, I never tell y'all about how God has a great sense of humor. You know, everything that we think he sends to us to hurt us and break us is only to make us stronger, to actually strengthen us and grow us. So every time we say, oh God, you're giving me more than I can bear, he said, no, I'm strengthening your spiritual muscles. He said, I'm strengthening your trust in me. No, I'm strengthening your faith in me. So if we can understand that it is a workout that God is giving us, that means we have to go through the process in order to get to the place that God wants us. I am so excited today that we are talking with Sandra Stockton. And yes, she's an author Sandra L. Stockton. So we're going to talk about some of her books and her journey. But as always, I want to start off. What was your midnight hour, or what were your midnight hours?
Well, my first midnight hour was when I was stationed in South Korea. I was in the military, and I had went to the hairdresser to get my hair done. And the Korea time is like when it's daytime over there, it's nighttime here. So I was at the beauty shop getting my hair done, and my daughter called me when I got to my room. There were no cell phones then; it was a desk phone. I said, "Hey, Mom, what's up?" I said, "Hey, what's up with you?" We talked for a while. I tell her everything was good in Korea. She said everything's good at home. So I said, I'm going to lay down and go to sleep because I just got off the night shift. I'm a nurse. So I went to sleep, and the phone rang, and it was like, I was maybe asleep a half an hour, and it was Carmen again. I said, am I dreaming? Did we already talk, Carmen Gina? Said, yeah, Mom, we talked, but I had to call you back. Why? What's going on? And I hear my other daughter's voice on the phone and said, hey, Mom, it's Kimmy. And now I'm really waking up like, okay, I'm not asleep. I'm waking up. And then I hear my sons on the phone, and they live in different states. Carmen in Virginia, Kim in Maryland, the boys are in Pennsylvania. And I think the youngest son was in Maryland. And I had my youngest say, oh, I'm here too, Mom. Now I'm really concerned because all of my kids are on this call, and I'm in Korea, And then I hear a nephew chime in. He lives in Pennsylvania. And then my daughter says, Mom, Pork is on the phone. I said, what's going on? I hear him say, Aunt Sandy, Nanny's house is on fire. That was my mom. So I was like too thrilled. I'm like, what? And then to hear him say, they carried out 2 bodies. Now I'm really 18 hours away. I'm trying to cry. I'm 18 hours away by flight, and I'm hearing all my kids talking, and I'm panicking. Like, is my mom dead? Who's in there with her? And everything. So they talked for a while. Then I couldn't talk no more. I just started crying. I told him I got to hang up. So, and I was hoping that my husband would call me, and nobody was really calling me. And all my sisters were calling. I said, and finally my husband called. I said, I cannot get out of the country until somebody calls the Red Cross to get me out of here. So my husband called me. He said, yes, your mom did die, and your sister died in the fire too. Mm. So he called the Red Cross. I called my commander, and I was on a flight going back to the States the next morning, 18 hours. That was the longest 18-hour ride, changing planes, and all I could think about was they're gone. And I'm traveling because there's going to be a funeral of my mom and my sister. And my sister was the one named after my mom. So we lost both of the Dorothys at the same time. So I'm traveling on that 18-hour, and I stop in, I think Texas, got to change flights. And I'm calling the house, the number I had for my brother, on a hard phone because there was no cell phones. And I call, I get him because he had left me a number. And he's crying, he's upset. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, Mom left me, now mind you, family's fighting already. Mom left me money insurance policy, and our sister said I have to give it to her. I said, I don't know what's going on. I'm on my way home. You don't have to give anybody anything. I got this, just like that. So I go back to get my flight, and the airline says, Miss Stockton, you missed your flight. They rerouted me to a different flight. They got me on another one an hour or so later, and I got on that flight, made it home, finally to Maryland, the airport in Washington. My husband picked me up right there, drove straight to Pennsylvania, where my sisters were, to go there, where everybody was, and everybody's like, so sad. It's tremendous sorrow, and I'm the second oldest. And when I got there, I think the thing that broke me more than anything is that my sisters weren't even talking about the loss of mom and sister. They're arguing about what is left in her house that they can have. Who does that? Who does that? And I just kind of buffed up and said, listen, whoever don't have something that you want, if you want it, you can have it. Because the house that my mother lived in belonged to me and my husband. She can't take it with her. I don't want it. So we ain't gonna do this fighting. So after we sorted all out, everything was good. We went. And then we went the next day to the Undertaker's. My sister had already made plans. Again, I was kind of hurt because I knew I wasn't that far away, but I should have been included to have some decision, but I didn't. She already did everything, signed everything, and said that her sister in the military will take care of everything. So we did all that, got through the funeral, and I decided 30 days later I was going to fly back to my state duty station in Korea because there was too much at home to talk to sisters and brothers about. I don't want to talk anymore. I ended up getting a lot of money and splitting the money out with all the siblings before I left and left. So 18 hours again on that plane, flying back to my duty station, just thinking, and that was the only time I ever contemplated suicide. Because when I got back, I went to this building. It's where a casino is. It's a hotel. And I was up on the second floor because I hadn't been there before, and I knew the casino was downstairs. And something made me go in the elevator and go upstairs and go to the window. And my brain was telling me to jump out that window. And it's like nothing was there except me in that window. And this white young soldier came by, and I remember him tapping me on my shoulder. He said, Colonel, because I was in uniform. I turned around and said, Colonel, and I'm looking at him, chairs. He said, are you okay? And I just looked at him and said, I'm good. Then I walked away, got on the elevator, went back, and went to my room. And for that little bit of time, I probably could have jumped. And something just woke me from that. You can't do this. And I'm thinking, what would my kids do without me if I did that? These are their grandma, their aunt, and then me. So it would be forever that I would think about her. And then I started feeling guilty because I wasn't really thinking about my sister every time I thought about my mother because it was so much to bear. And one day my military girlfriend told me we were in San Antonio about 6 months after they died. And she said, one day you're going to feel guilty because you forgot to think about them. Now, first I didn't understand what she was talking about. This sounds crazy. What are you saying, So I'm saying you think about them all the time, 24/7. I know you do. I lost my mother. I feel you. But one day you're going to feel guilty that you forgot to think about them. And this is a strange thing. It was like years later. I was just by myself, chilling, watching TV, and all of a sudden, oh, wow, I didn't even think about my mom for a long time. And she said, that's when you're going to know you're good to go, that you're okay, that you crossed that bridge, that you're good to go. And that was my midnight hour. Took years to get through that, but I got through that. And then
I like that, Sandra.
Yeah.
Because I think people don't understand that you lost two people at the same time.
Same time.
And a lot of times it wasn't necessarily the hurt of just that, but just of the tearing up that was going on in your family when you got back too.
Right.
We have to find that place where we can just find a happy, peaceful place during that journey and not focus so much on the stuff, the tangible stuff, but be able to hold and nourish the people who are left. And I think that's a point that we really, really need to make sure that people understand. Everybody needs a little love, a little support, a little empathy, on the journey, because at some place, that those people aren't here anymore. So we're arguing over stuff.
Who cares about,
Mm-hmm. That stuff. But I'm glad that Officer tapped you on the shoulder so I could meet you and talk to you and hear your story. And I'm sure your kids and your grandkids and all of your foster kids are wonderful and excited that you stayed with us. But I'm glad you were transparent and shared that moment,
Right.
because we don't realize how many people are suicidal, Sandra. We don't realize how many people, because it seems like they have so much pressure on them. Like you said, you lost two people, and the thing is, you had 18 hours to really just for all of that to pile back up on you on that journey, on that trip. And we don't know what kind of trip people are going on, you know. And it don't necessarily have to be a plane trip, but some people are on trips right now heading toward a suicidal place,
Right.
but we don't have anybody checking on them. Nobody to tap them on the shoulder to say, hey, how are you doing? So if right now you don't do anything else, hey, it might be late you watching this, it might be early in the morning you watching this, but it might be somebody, their text or a call, their phone ringing might keep them from jumping. The buzz of the text might keep them from jumping, or pulling the trigger, or taking the bottle of pills, because they're in their midnight hour right now, and they need somebody to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, you got a reason to still live. Hey, it's some other people that want you and need you. Hey, don't push other people into this position either.
Exactly.
So we need those people. So that was that first step. But then even your friend that 6 months later to say, hey, you know, you'll know when you've worked through some of this, when you know, when you've seen some of the light, when you don't feel that regret and feel that pressure from that every day and that every moment thought. So that's another place I want people to say, if you're not talking about them every day, if you're not thinking about them every day, that's not a bad thing.
No,
I think people feel like, if I'm not talking about what happened yesterday, or if I'm not talking about their memory, somehow I've forgotten them. That does not mean you have forgotten them. That means you're just continuing to live on and still live with them in your heart. You didn't forget them. It's just not something that you have to constantly live with the pressure and the pain and the hurt and the regret. So I love those things that you shared with us, Sandra, because I know people who are watching really need it, you know, those simple things. And plus, it'll help other people who are watching, to help other people keep from being stuck in that place. Sometimes we don't know what to say, but even if it's just, how are you doing at this moment? Some people just need a buzz on their phone, a little smiley face, a little prayer. You know, we live in a social media world. Just send a little gift, something that shows people you are thinking about them in their midnight hour. I know you can't get them out of it, but you can keep them from being in a suicidal, lonely place where they feel like there is nothing else for them. So what, after that, what did you begin to do that gave you joy, that allows you to, you know, memorialize your mother and your sister, you know, so you can keep them in your heart and keep a place of joy in your life now?
They'll just always do it, because I have so many sisters and brothers, you know, we just always had family things, family picnics, get-togethers. Like I have a family picnic at my farm right now. I guess it'll be our 12th or 13th year coming up, where we do Thanksgiving in July. All the family comes. Everybody just comes and has a good time, music, food, and people, and just keep people connected and keeping their cousins knowing cousins, and, you know, and uncles knowing their nieces and nephews and things like that. And then talk about pictures. And in my house, I have pictures everywhere. So it's kind of like a gallery. So I have pictures of sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, grandkids, everybody. So they just come and they look and just talk about people.
I think that's simple, but sometimes we lose that connection.
And
I believe this COVID season gave us an excuse to disconnect.
I know.
But we have to find the new ways to do it. If you can't physically come out, at least do it virtually, at least do it half and half, at least pick up the phone. You know, we have too many social ways to still stay connected, instead of using those as excuses to create division. So, you know, the connections, the photos, the memories, the conversations, I think those are very necessary things. And I think a lot of us have lost that in the busyness of the world, and not being intentional about setting that time aside so that people know each other, like you see, so that nieces know all their uncles and everybody know their cousins. We spread out so much across the country, not even just the United States, but across the country. And we don't have that connection or that intentional set aside time to make sure that everybody's showing up, and make sure it's a happy place that people are showing up to. So it's not that people want to be there, that people want to be connected. So I know
Right.
all those things are important. But Sandra, I know you are doing so much and have done so much. First of all, I am going to ask you about foster care because I know that it was one of the things that has brought you joy on your journey, you know, loving people even when you're going through hurt and struggle yourself. So tell us about the foster journey, and definitely tell us how many kids you have fostered and then what is next for you, Sandra.
Well, the foster journey was something that kind of just happened, even after when I came back from Korea, when I came up active duty the first time. I was like really bored, and all of our children were out of the house. My husband and I were just by ourselves. And I saw a story about a foster child, and she was supposed to be a foster white girl pregnant to an Afro American boy, and they were having a hard time placing her. So I read the story and said, "Why? Why would they have a hard time placing her? She's a kid." So I called up about that child, and they invited me into the agency. When I got there, were other women there, two other white women, saw that same story. I think it was a bait and switch, because obviously when we got there, she was placed. So basically, that's how they talked to us about foster care. We all agreed to get in, and we went to classes, and we all got certified and became foster parents. So then from then on, I started being a foster parent. Our first child that we got was white, and they didn't want to place her with us because the agency had never mixed races. Come on, this is 1995. You mixing races? What's with this? So after we had a long talk and we found out that her mother's boyfriend was black and she had two children to him, then they said, okay, we'll put her with you guys. Her name is Michelle, and I'm in constant contact with her all the time. She's in her 40s. She was our first foster child. She talks to me all the time. But she was our first one, and after that was just like kids coming. We started with girls for the first several years, and then there was an incident in an agency, not our agency, but another agency, where a foster child accused her foster parent of inappropriate behavior, and they had to be investigated. So that's a big thing that happens if you get accused of something. So at that point, we decided that we would switch gears and go with all boys because I was away from the house more than Aaron was. So we're just switching the boys from then on. So I guess the youngest one, well, we had a 5-year-old, almost drove me crazy. I can't do that. But we had mostly all teens and independent living children. So our job with the kids that we took mostly was to get them through school or get them through a GED program, get them a driver's license, and get them ready to move on to independent living as like a shared apartment or something like that. So that was what we did. So we did that for years. Um, One day we had, I guess like 2 or 3 years ago, we had two young boys, white kids that were brothers. In a book I write about them, I call them little brother and big brother because they were like fourth grade and like seventh grade or whatever. And they were found in their biological maternal grandmother and father's home in the basement with no food and dead animals, and everything was horrible. And so we took them. We were young, and we never really took children that young, but we took them. We hung on to them for like 2 years, and then we found out when we got them that they had the same mother but a different father. But the biological grandparents to the youngest one wanted him, had tried to fight the courts to get him for years and couldn't. So I told them, I'm going to help you get that kid, but you got to stick with me because we got to work this through the courts to get this kid. And the reason why they didn't want to separate him because the older boy had no family. He only had that brother and his mother. He doesn't know his father, doesn't know any other family. It was just him alone, so they wouldn't separate them. I thought it was unfair to the younger brother who had this whole big family of his grandparents and a sister and etc. that they needed to get him. So we worked it out. I went to court, many court visits, talking to the judge, and they came with a plan that they would let the grandparents have him, but we had to make a plan where they could see each other. So since we still had an older brother, we decided that once a month we would get that kid. He can come with us in the summer, 1 or 2 weeks in the summer, and they see their brother. So we did that. But we found that after separating them, maybe 6 months in, the older brother wasn't happy at our house anymore because we had no kids when he had them too. So we talked to him and we talked to the agent. We said, we have to find a family that has another child. And they found a parent that was new to the agency, and they had a son who was 2 years younger than our son that we had. And they placed him there, did a visit, it worked well. And he's been there for 3 or 4 years. It's going well. So I still talk to them since my daughters are foster parents. They do respite. My oldest one gets him a lot, so I see him. So the connection is still there. So I have a connection with a lot of our foster children who come to us on social media now. Like last month, a young white male texted me, hey, remember me, Miss Sandy? I'm like, not really. He said, well, that's one of your foster kids. I said, who are you with? So he tells me who he's with. He said, I know you said I was bad, right? I said, you were. And then I remember just from stories. So it's nice that how many have contacted us. And since social media, that's a good thing. We're in contact with about at least 40 or 50 of them all the time. I'm writing a lot. I got permission from a lot of them to write in the book. So yeah, we're in contact a lot. We see them a lot. And on the backstory, things that we never knew about them when they were kids with us, they actually gave me their backstory, how they really got into foster care and all the things that really happened to them. Some of it was just horrible, that I'm glad I came into their life, and I'm glad I'm still into their life, that they contact me and talk to me about issues. Like one had major surgery, and she knew I was a nurse. She came right to me. Hey, Mom Sandy, this is what's going on, what I need to do, and talking her through what she needs to do and helping her. So it is good that we did it. And Aaron came along. He does anything I want to do. He agrees with it. So we became foster parents, for the team, not just our agency, but all the kids out there who need foster parents. And there are so many kids out there, thousands, who need homes and not enough parents to take them. We need to find the parents who want to take them because they need help. They're out there. So that was our journey. And another thing that made me really push hard for it is I found out when I was an adult that my mother and her sister and her brother were foster kids, that my grandmother lost her kids. And that's a whole nother long story. My mother told me her foster care stories as an adult. And one day I said to her, how come you never told us that when we were kids? She said, I didn't think you needed to know. So
yeah, so I do, Sandra. And it is. We don't know how many young people are really going through midnight hour moments because we don't know their backstories. We don't know how they ended up in those positions. And you help those kids through a lot of things, so we don't realize how foster care helps that journey for people to have a better life. So, tell us about the book. How it's going so people can get the book. And I know you're not finished writing it yet, but how can they pre-order it so they can be a part of this journey, and how, can help them be better foster parents? So,
well, the foster care book, like we're just about done. And we decided to do it when Chapter 7 ran our story about foster parenting. And we had over 500,000 hits. And everybody's coming at us to speak about children. I've done some speaking engagements in Pennsylvania. I was excited to be invited, but I was worried about what I was going to say, so I had to go to Google. But they all turned out pretty good, the things that I went through. And the book should be done, probably, I should be done writing it and going over within the next 30 days.
yes.
Hopefully I'm going to send it to Red Baby Publishing to get that book published.
Amen.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. And I don't have anything, no pre-sales yet, but I do have a website. It is actually my name. And they can email me if they want a book, and I'll give them information and talk to them through there. And my email address is my name, Sandra L. Kearse, Stockton, all small letters, .com. So it is my name, and then I'll go to them like that. So the foster care book was an in-between book because I haven't finished the series of my first book, 40 Cador Street. But I'll finish that after I'm done this, because something made me change gears. Once that news hit and everybody started talking to me, I decided I better do something with foster care. So that's why I'm doing that book. But I think
Amen. But I am going to add your foster care book to our grief garage, because that's a load of kids that are going through grief, and we need to understand their story and understand their journey. So I thank you for taking the time to share with us, taking the time to share your love over the last few decades with all of these young lives to make productive adults. And definitely for allowing me to share your book as a resource in our garage so that people can know the journey and help other people through this process. So got to realize that young people need to learn how to process grief. Right. There is no age limitation. We think people have lived so long that they shouldn't hurt anymore. But I am so glad that you joined me and shared your story with me. So I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of the Midnight Hour.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.